Okay, so it is February 2026, and honestly, if you've been glancing at the financial headlines this week, you might think you accidentally picked up a sci-fi paperback.
Instead of the Wall Street Journal, yeah.
We are tracking reports of what could be the single largest corporate merger of the century.
It's definitely the boldest. We're looking at advanced discussions to merge SpaceX and xAI.
And just to orient everyone on the scale here, because numbers get thrown around so loosely in tech,
Right.
we aren't talking about two scrappy startups. SpaceX is currently valued at a staggering $800 billion.
And xAI is what, around $230 billion?
Exactly. So if, or I guess when, this deal goes through, you are looking at an entity that debuts with a valuation north of $1 trillion.
Potentially $1.5 trillion by the time they ring the opening bell.
That number is just hard to even visualize. It's bigger than the GDP of most countries.
It really is.
But the money isn't actually the most interesting part of this deep dive. The real question, the one that stops you in your tracks, is the why.
Right. Why does a rocket company need to merge with a chatbot company?
On the surface, it looks like a standard conglomerate play.
But when you really dig into the filings and, the physics of it, it's much stranger. It's about building orbital data centers.
And about the Pentagon shifting to a war footing.
And ultimately, it's about something called a Dyson swarm.
A Dyson swarm. I mean, that is usually the stuff of theoretical astrophysics, right?
Mm.
Civilizations harvesting stars.
It is, but Musk basically confirmed this on X. A user posted that SpaceX was pivoting to become a Dyson swarm company, and Musk just replied.
With one word.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. So today our mission is to unpack that, yeah. We're going to look at the mechanics of this massive deal, and then we are going to do a serious reality check on the physics of putting AI in space.
Because, spoiler alert, it is way harder than the marketing makes it sound.
Physics is the ultimate regulator, and it has some harsh laws.
Very hard.
And finally, we have to talk about the military angle. Because while everyone is watching the stock tickers, the Pentagon is quietly shifting to a wartime footing using this exact technology.
It's a convergence of capital, thermodynamics, and national security.
Let's start with the deal itself. This moved from internet rumor to legal reality pretty quickly. We have actual paper trails now.
We do. On January 21st, 2026, filings appeared in Nevada for two entities, K2 Merger Sub Inc. and K2 Merger Sub 2 LLC.
K2, like the mountain. Is that a reference?
Likely a reference to the difficulty of the climb, yeah. But the telling detail is the personnel. The managing member listed is Brett Johnson, the CFO of SpaceX.
Okay, so when the chief financial officer creates merger subsidiaries...
It's usually not for practice.
So the structure is likely a share swap.
That's the consensus. They swap xAI shares for SpaceX shares. This cleans up the cap table right before SpaceX launches its IPO later this year.
But to understand why they need to do this, you have to look at xAI's bank account. I assumed, since everyone is talking about Grok and I see it everywhere on my feed, they were just rolling in cash.
They are rolling in users. About 64 million monthly active users for Grok right now. But financially, it's a furnace.
A furnace.
In just 9 months, xAI burned through $7.8 billion.
Wait. Nearly $8 billion in less than a year. That is a staggering burn rate.
It is. And on $107 million in revenue, they posted a loss of $1.46 billion.
That's just unsustainable, even for Musk.
Exactly. AI training is arguably the most capital-intensive industrial project humans have ever attempted. You need chips, you need energy, and you need cooling.
So by merging with SpaceX, he solves the cash flow problem because SpaceX is a mature, revenue-generating giant.
It pays the bills. But there's a deeper strategy here than just that. We've seen this term vertical intelligence floating around the analyst report.
This is the key insight, right?
Yeah, I think so. Usually companies specialize. Google does search, Boeing does planes. Musk is trying to build a closed loop. He calls it the everything company, but vertical intelligence is more accurate.
How does that loop work in practice?
Well, think about it. You have the hardware, that's Tesla and SpaceX, building the physical machines.
Right.
You have the data collection, that's the cars, the rockets, and all the user data from X. And then you have the brain xAI processing all that data to tell the hardware what to do next.
And the missing piece has always been the energy to run the brain.
Precisely. And that is where the merger gets really wild. Because they aren't just trying to lower their electric bill.
They are trying to leave the grid entirely.
Yes. And this brings us to the orbital data center. We saw a filing with the FCC. where SpaceX is asking for permission to launch a constellation of
1 million satellites.
1 million. For context, the entire Starlink constellation right now, which already feels like it fills the sky, is about 9,500 satellites.
So he wants to multiply the number of objects in orbit by a factor of 100. And these aren't just for internet, right?
No, not at all. The proposal is to put the compute in the satellite. This is the Dyson swarm concept in its infancy.
But why do that? Is it just to be closer to the other satellites? Or is rent just too high in Silicon Valley?
It's an energy play. On Earth, data centers are straining the power grid. We're actually running out of easily accessible electricity for AI training clusters.
Okay.
But in space, specifically in a sun-synchronous orbit,
Wait, break that down for us. Sun synchronous? What does that mean?
it's a specific path around the Earth that kind of rides the line between day and night, the dawn-dusk line.
So if you park a satellite there.
It never goes into the Earth's shadow. It is impermanent. 247 sunlight. No clouds, no night cycles.
And it's better solar power up there, too?
Much better. The solar irradiance, the intensity of the sunlight, is about 1,300 watts per square meter. That is 3 to 4 times more potent than what you get on the ground through the atmosphere.
I see the logic. You launch the GPUs, you unfold massive solar wings, and you have free, unlimited, high-intensity energy. No coal plants, no grid constraints.
It is the first baby step toward a Kardashev Type 2 civilization harvesting the sun directly.
Right. It sounds perfect, almost too perfect. This is where we have to stop and look at the physics.
Because there's always a catch.
And the catch is, it's not getting the energy that's the problem, it's getting rid of it.
You've hit on the fundamental bottleneck. High-end AI chips run incredibly hot. Now on Earth, how do we cool a data center?
We use giant fans to blow air over them, or we pump water through the racks?
Correct. We use convection. The air or the water physically carries the heat away from the chip.
But in space.
There is no air. There is no water. It's a vacuum. You can't use a fan because there's nothing to blow.
So you can't use convection.
At all. The only way to get rid of heat in a vacuum is radiation. You literally have to let the heat glow off the surface as infrared light.
And is that efficient?
Oh, it is terribly inefficient compared to a fan.
Yeah.
It's governed by something called the Stefan-Boltzmann equation. And without getting too deep in the weeds, it essentially says the amount of heat you can reject depends entirely on surface area.
Okay.
To cool just one modern GPU, like an NVIDIA H100, purely by radiation, you need about 1.1 square meters of radiator surface area.
It's a square meter. For one chip, that doesn't sound too huge.
For one chip, no. Now,
Right.
scale that up to a 5-gigawatt data center, which is what they're proposing, you would need roughly 8 square kilometers of radiators.
8 square
Like-
kilometers. That's bigger than the entire territory of Gibraltar, just floating in space.
Exactly. It becomes this massive structural problem. You are launching these delicate, gigantic radiator cells that are arguably more expensive and heavier than the chips themselves. If you don't have that surface area, the chips just melt.
And there's an obsolescence problem too, isn't there? Because tech moves so fast.
A huge one. On Earth, when the new NVIDIA chip comes out every 18 months, you walk into the data center, pull out the old rack, and plug in the new one.
Right, you can't exactly send a technician in a van to orbit to swap out a video card.
No. If you launch 1 million satellites with H100s, and 2 years later the B200 comes out, which is 5 times faster,
Yeah.
you are stuck. You have 1 million pieces of space junk. You have stranded assets.
So Musk is betting that he can launch satellites so cheaply with Starship that he can just treat supercomputers as disposable, like a paper plate.
That's the only way the math works. He has to turn the launch cost to near zero. It's a huge gamble against the laws of thermodynamics and economics.
Now, while Musk is fighting thermodynamics in orbit, he's also making moves on the ground that are just as aggressive. We need to pivot to the Pentagon.
This is the shift that I think people might be missing because they're so focused on the stock price.
Yeah. On January 12th, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, visited Starbase, Texas.
And we should pause on that title. Secretary of War. It hasn't been called that since 1947.
It's a very deliberate rebranding by the administration. It signals a shift from defense, which is a reactive posture, to war, an active capability.
And the visual of Hegseth standing in front of a Starship rocket with Musk was, well, it was clear.
Hegseth had a quote that really stood out. He said, "We are done running a peacetime science fair."
That is a direct shot at the traditional defense procurement system. And XAI is the weapon of choice here. They announced that Grok is going to be integrated into Pentagon networks alongside Google's Gemini.
But with a very different personality than Google.
Very different. The mandate for Grok is that it will not be woke.
That's a loaded term. How does the Pentagon define woke in a software requirement?
In their documentation, they define it as being factually accurate, mission relevant, and without ideological constraints.
Meaning,
Essentially, they don't want an AI that hesitates to provide targeting data or threat assessments because of a safety filter designed for, civilian chat.
mhm.
They want lethality and cold objectivity.
So it's about removing the guardrails that might slow down a military decision. And it seems like Hegseth isn't just buying Musk's product.
No, he's buying Musk's management philosophy. He explicitly mentioned Musk's algorithm.
You know the list. Question every requirement. Delete the part. Simplify. Accelerate.
Hegseth is taking a chainsaw to the DoD bureaucracy using that exact playbook.
I read that he's abolishing the alphabet soup of committees.
Gone.
Yeah.
The Defense Innovation Steering Group. Gone. He's empowering a single chief technology officer, Emil Michael, to override the generals on tech decisions.
That is a massive consolidation of power. Usually, military procurement takes a decade.
It does, and they've created this III fund, Innovation Insertion Increment. The goal is to get code from a developer's laptop to a battlefield system in hours or days, not the usual 5 to 10 years.
Speed is great, but in the military, move fast and break things usually means people die.
Or systems fail.
Yeah.
That is the concern.
Yeah.
And it's not just about bugs in the code, it's about conflicts of interest. We have a letter from congressional Democrats ranking members Adam Smith, Zoe Lofgren, who are raising alarm bells.
Because Musk isn't just a vendor anymore, he's also leading the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE.
Right, so you have a situation where Musk is advising the government on which agencies to cut funding to, while his companies are receiving billions in contracts from that same government.
It's a feedback loop. He could theoretically defund the very regulators who are supposed to be overseeing SpaceX.
It is historically unprecedented. There's no clear mechanism right now to handle a conflict of that scale.
And digging into the risk further, there's the foreign influence question. The sources brought up a comparison to a gaming company, Electronic Arts.
Yeah, this is a fascinating parallel. There was a consortium buying EA that included the Saudi Public Investment Fund and Jared Kushner's firm. The concern was about data privacy and foreign access to user data.
And how does that map to XAI?
Well, if XAI and SpaceX merge, you have to look at the cap table. Who owns the shares? If there is foreign money, Saudi, Chinese, or otherwise in the company that controls the Pentagon's AI brain, that's a massive vulnerability.
Does CFI-US, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., have a say here? They usually block that kind of thing?
Normally, yes. But the sources suggest that the political capital Musk has right now might make him immune to a rigorous review. The political realities might just override the security protocols.
So we have financial risk, political risk, and then we have the physical risk. We need to circle back to those 1 million satellites.
The Kessler syndrome.
This is the nightmare scenario where space becomes a prison.
It's a chain reaction. One satellite hits another, creates debris. That debris hits 3 more, creates more debris. And eventually, you have a shell of shrapnel moving at 17,000 miles per hour surrounding the planet.
And this isn't just theory. We had a warning shot on January 30th.
Just a few days ago, a Russian satellite, the Lugalimp, broke up in a graveyard orbit. It wasn't even hit. It seems to have just fallen apart.
And that was just one satellite.
One satellite created a cloud of debris that threatened other assets. Now imagine adding 1 million massive data centers, each with 8 square kilometers of cooling cells, into that environment.
It feels like a tragedy of the commons waiting to happen.
That's the expert consensus. If we rush to launch these mega constellations to harvest solar power without solving the traffic management, we could permanently destroy low Earth orbit.
Which brings us to the ultimate irony. Musk's stated goal, his life's work, is to make humanity multiplanetary, to go to Mars.
Right. But by building the Dyson swarm to pay for it, he might create a debris field that makes it impossible to ever leave Earth. He could accidentally lock the door to Mars and throw away the key.
We also saw a comment from Joe Longsdale, the co-founder of Palantir. He's usually pretty pro-defense tech. What's his take?
He was cautious. He said he doesn't second-guess Elon, which is fair, given the track record, but he warned about focus. When you merge rockets, social media, AI, and energy, you risk losing the clarity of the mission.
The everything company might end up doing nothing perfectly.
That's the danger of conglomeration. Complexity is the enemy of execution.
So when we pull all these threads together, what are we actually looking at here? It's not just a merger.
No. We are witnessing the construction of a new kind of infrastructure. You have the hardware, the energy, and the intelligence all being consolidated into a single vertical stack.
It feels almost like the industrial trusts of the 19th century Standard Oil or U.S. Steel, but on a planetary scale.
It is. If Musk pulls this off, if he beats the physics of heat, if he navigates the Pentagon, and if he avoids the debris nightmare, he isn't just a CEO, he becomes the architect of the operating system for the next century.
Vertical intelligence. It's a catchy marketing term, but in reality, it means one entity controlling the launch, the data, the processing, and the power.
It's a high-wire act. And as we've seen, the risks from a single fried chip in a vacuum to a collision in orbit are non-zero.
It's a lot to process. Tonight, when you step outside, maybe take a look up.
It used to be quiet up there.
It did. But if this deal goes through and those filings in Nevada turn into hardware in orbit, the night sky is about to get a lot more crowded and a lot more intelligent.
And hopefully not too hot.
That's the hope. That's it for this deep dive into the SpaceX XAI merger. We'll be keeping an eye on those radiator designs and the debris field. Thanks for listening.